All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Fruits Basket, Season 2, Episode 10. Last episode was a doozy.
Last episode gave us some really painful moments with Akito on full display.
Yeah.
On full display.
You know, if this next episode is more emotional punishment, I will take it. But some sweet, happy, fluffy, stuff would be nice right now.
Thankfully, the last episode did have that.
It did.
The moments with Toru and Kyo especially were really sweet. And given that Kyo seems to be the one that we're shifting focus to amidst the Yuki and Toru kind of duo, I think that could be really good because we gave a lot of good focus to Yuki in the first part of this season thus far, and giving a bit to Kyo would be really good. I think that Toru kind of being in proximity to all this is really good because there's an aspect of her personality that is even if it's super dysfunctional and abusive family, it's still family. And it's like, well, maybe Toru, you can see what this is like. So you know, oh, wait, no, there is such a thing as really bad family.
Yeah, there's a difference between her hearing about, situations that are supposedly bad.
Which she doesn't really.
But she doesn't really too much because, one, why would they want to go into the details?
Nope.
And three, or even if she was getting details, that's a whole lot different than seeing it yourself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, or at least the effects of it.
Right.
So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. But just the idea that Akito could be immortal, or have, like, some kind of Attack on Titan-style memories thing, Akito would just be fucked up in that regard. And then, there could be the whole thing of, well, Akito has never been able to make actual real connections because Akito isn't really human.
He's constantly been a slave to the spirit of the god or whatever. So then it's, he also makes them...
Right. He's just duplicating what he's been taught.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited for this. But we got some Shigure hinting.
We did.
We got some Shigure hinting too. Like where was that? That was
it was early on.
That was really early. Yeah. So he's pissed at Shigure because Shigure isn't as nice as he used to be.
Right.
I think it's because Shigure is enacting his plan right now.
Right, exactly.
So he's starting to bare his teeth, and the dog has been good, faking it, dutiful, doggo, but maybe not anymore for you, Akito. Of course, I have so much I could die. I'm displeased with you. You're not nice. You're not nice to me at all. Aren't I being nice? Not nice at all. Nice. You're also only... Well, wait. You used to be much nicer. You looked only at me.
Right.
Be nicer. Holy shit. Like, there's so many things this could be. Like, is this Akito basically saying that, like, one of the reasons why Akito is so, like... against anyone else having love is that Akito used to have like a love relationship of some kind.
I can see that.
Got fall apart. Was Shigure like?
Well, I got the impression that this was the person that Akito took from Shigure, and it's the reason why Shigure has this vengeance, mission, right? And he's been basically keeping it a secret. Now, the fact that he went from there to but
this looks like kids.
Right, so this makes me think like childhood friend, like so long ago, that it's like...
Now, Shigure is remembered for like 20 years or
right, now granted, Shigure is older than Akito, so...
But we don't know that.
But, he seems like he'd be older than Akito.
That's the thing. Akito has been put into the, he's effectively a god. So there's no question as to why people can't actually, just deal with him.
Exactly. Even if he's, the reincarnation, even if he is physically that age, it could be that he's the reincarnation of it. Because, he did seem younger when he was dealing with Yuki.
True.
Clearly, in order to be that twisted with, Yuki and stuff, he probably, like, that's just developmentally, he's probably...
He hasn't grown up normally.
Exactly.
At the very least.
Yeah.
At the very least. Like that's a given.
Yeah.
It's just the question of, like, what was the content, what was the context, and then how long was that?
Right.
Because you can have some dense, hyper-focused suffering that changes a person forever.
And
but if you had any kind of supernatural element to it, you can skew it really hard in one direction.
And I get the feeling it's probably going, like, you know, mostly conjecture, but I get the feeling it's going to be the reincarnation thing, because that's how the Zodiacs are passed down, you know?
Sure.
But... Yeah.
Yeah,
and
that's it could also be a thing where Akito didn't necessarily have to be this being, and that's part of the where this could be extra fucked up, is that Akito feels like maybe some of the older ones here chose him.
Sure.
And that's a thing that's fucked him up forever.
Yeah,
now.
Whether it's the older people of the family or just, cosmic coincidence, you know? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Shigure came really close, I think, to, like, fighting back here.
Oh yeah, I think it was something where specifically that woman.
Do you really, that woman? So okay. So Akito in this instance basically did something.
Yeah.
And divined on some level, I think, that Shigure has at the very least some kind of warm regard towards Toru.
Okay.
And that he's potentially either using her for his whole plans or what have you, or at the very least, he cares about her so much that she's also changed him. Like,
sure.
Yeah. Like at the very least, Shigure being, like, in this situation where once this encounter ends, he goes to Toru. So, like, there's a very clear connection there.
One of the things that I've kind of wondered a little bit about is who's Toru's dad? Because we know that her mom now has a connection to the Soma family, right?
Via not necessarily, like, blood, but, like,
right, but we know that
chance encounters.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Really emotional chance encounters. Yeah.
And if she interacted with some of the Soma family, it's not too crazy to think that it was something also where maybe some of the other members did as well. And that could also give explanation for why Toru's memory needed to be wiped. And it is possible that, you know, like, I don't know, like, what if Shigure is Toru's dad and Akito killed her mom or something?
The age thing doesn't match up. The age thing does not match up.
With Shigure and her mom?
Oh, no, with just Toru's age. Shigure would be way too young. he would be way too young.
Oh, right, no, because he's 29. Never mind. We have...
No.
Yeah. Or 27 or something. Yeah,
we have. He's in his 20s. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's the whole anime adult thing. Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, and also Shigure is in some ways one of the most jovial of the adults, really. So he almost feels like he could be 22 in terms of the way he portrays himself.
Sure.
But we know that he's 29, so that's not an issue there. But yeah, Akito is stressed, comes here to relax, ends up seeing that everyone has changed, gets even more stressed. Shigure gleefully enjoys this.
Yep.
Akito puts some pressure on different members of the family. Still, stress boils even more as Akito starts to realize that his hold on the family is slipping because of Toru.
Yep.
Goes to see her, like, immediately, and he's furious.
Oh yeah,
he's livid. And Momiji, the
boy,
legend.
And the thing is that he probably saved it from getting way worse.
Way worse. Because we don't know what Akito can or can't do.
Nope.
So just Akito stalking, like, lumbering up here and being like, I want to see her now.
Well, he punched Momiji, you know, you know, and Momiji wasn't the person he was after. Nope. So, you know,
I loved the reveal that they all were there watching.
Yeah.
But they couldn't do anything. Now, to be fair, the adults weren't actually watching. Momiji had to run and go grab them, and they came there as fast as they could. But the fact that the boys inside were so scared or so angry and frustrated that if they did do anything, they would escalate it further.
Exactly.
Because in some ways,
then that would show to Akito how much he's lost his control over them.
Because they care so much about Toru that
Right.
they'd be willing to jeopardize their position in the
Exactly.
family, or even their souls or what have you,
Right.
to
Which
just
would then
keep that
make
little
him
bit there.
flip out even more.
Yeah, and literally Akito is like I think I get it now. Akito is a weird form of an abusive dad. So you don't want to give the dad alcohol when they're upset. But the thing is that the dad can just go and grab the booze and start drinking.
Right.
At that point that the best thing that you can do is to distance yourself from him. But you're also in a house, or you're in an apartment, or what have you. You can't leave necessarily. You'll have to come back here the next day, or what have you. So then what do? Do you protect those around you? If he starts laying into one of them, do you just stand in the way and just do nothing?
Well, and I think that's what Momiji was doing, is he was basically doing I'm going to be defending Toru, but I'm also going to do it in a way where I'm like making a plea.
You expend resources, basically.
Well, right, but also doing it in such a way that is specifically not angering you further, right? But okay,
yeah. Why are you?
Yeah, you're not. You're not in a good way right now.
Oh my God! Like I think I love so much the fact that he starts to go like, Akito, what's wrong? Why are you so mad?
Did something happen? Yeah.
And it's like this idea that Momiji is kind of going through the mechanics, if you will, of de-escalation in general. But
get him talking,
yeah, get him talking about something else, change the subject slightly, talk about yourself, and all this. But there's this aspect of Akito that we've never seen before. Was basically like, well, why would I do it? I told you you want to get to know me, to understand me. Is that it?
Right. And
understand the idea. You want to analyze me with your holier than thou logic. Like
that's a rich line there, because that's him admitting that basically he is a fucked up person. Right.
Well, not only that, but like you feel like you can understand me, but you can't.
Sure.
Which is the idea that, oh, no. It's not just that they could understand you, like, partially. It's that Akito, on some level, does not want to have that opportunity to show vulnerability with them so that they can then look at this and go, well, you admitted it yourself. You gave us power, essentially, once you showed that vulnerable side of yourself. So Akito is literally a, scared child holding all their defenses up, and yet is also emotionally expressive in a very toxic, unhealthy, abusive way here, but revealing the duality, the part that is basically hiding me, like, no, don't look at this. I'm not vulnerable. Don't condescend to me. Don't talk to me like you know me. And it's like, okay, yeah, sure. Yeah. Keep going.
Right.
Why can't we understand?
Keep spinning your wheels.
Keep spinning your wheels. Yeah. Oh my God.
I kind of want this to be in the discussion.
We are in the discussion, dude. Let's just have this all be the discussion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right. Yeah. Okay. All right.
I was trying to subtly tell you.
No. Yeah. I just.
I'm like, yeah. Who cares about
exactly.
We can do that at the end of the recording.
Yep.
Yeah, y'all. The sausage is made in a unique way, but sometimes the episode is so good that
when we're making sure we have the episode figured out.
Yeah, this is just the discussion at this point.
It's just how. I'm glad we were on the same wavelength.
Well, I mean, we almost were. We were almost exactly on the same wavelength.
On part of it, we were. Yeah.
Right. But Toru had her confrontation with Akito, and that's a great way to end the arc. Essentially, they'll leave the beach house next episode, but Toru questioned whether or not the basically the stakes, the final stakes basically of this series is that once they've all started to graduate high school, they'll just live on the estate with me forever. Except Akito, you have Shigure. Shigure had literally probably graduated high school a while ago, and he'd be living by himself at his own place.
That was happening long before Toru came along.
Long before Toru.
Now, granted, more people have started congregating to Shigure's place, since she
Yuki
came
and
along.
Kyo literally live there. It's not just Shigure at this point.
Yeah. So
and while he might have some but that's with Shigure, so it's still with the family, so it counts.
I still have a hold on Shigure, so they're not too far gone.
Yeah. See, that's where Shigure is so interesting in that what his play is has to be all kinds of like multi-layered here to try and just manipulate Akito into actually acting so that Akito can then almost face himself in some ways. It's kind of the thing of like Shigure is like literally trying to catch the biggest fish in existence, a god.
Right.
And he's like, I have to use some really fucking enticing bait. Like,
I need to make it catch itself.
I need to make it basically Ouroboros itself eventually. But in order to do that, I need to essentially serve up whatever I can as bait.
Right. Well,
and Toru is some really unique bait.
Yep. And one of the things that I gotta say, because I've had a lot of trouble over the course of this show with some of the abuse scenes and just it being a bit much for me, right?
Right.
And the reason why I had absolutely like no issue with this scene other than when he hit Momiji, right? That was like the, is because of the response of the people involved in the abuse, right? Like being abused, right?
Yep.
With Momiji, it was like the child it was the child standing up to the dark god, right? And just being like, no, right? And that is one of the most powerful things that I feel like a person can do in a situation like this. Not that isn't incredibly dangerous and stuff, and so that isn't necessarily something, far be it from me to say if that is a good idea.
That was a wise choice.
Yeah, you're right, exactly.
We don't know if Momiji will make it through this series now. Like, that's literally a possibility at this point.
But that's something that is a way to show in no uncertain terms that for all the power Akito has literally over you, he doesn't have any power over you.
No.
Right?
No,
like, he doesn't.
Not really.
Because you can just stand there and say no. And Momiji did it in a very helpful way to do all the de-escalation and all of that. But it showed that basically Momiji was actually the one. Momiji was in power right there. Not necessarily over Akito, but the Akito didn't have power over him.
Akito lost so much power that he had to resort to physical violence.
Exactly.
Which means on some level that, what it means for him to be a god is not necessarily so all-powerful, but it might be more metaphysical.
Sure.
And that's where you could get into the psychological brainwashing. You could get into the idea that they're all members of this, animal spirit cult of sorts. You could get into the idea that, Akito is not necessarily just Akito. Akito could be this, amalgamation of reincarnations of a godlike entity that possessed the first one and since then has been basically
just getting passed along like the Zodiac members, but
exactly.
It's like this instead.
Right,
like that could totally be a thing. But then also with Toru, it was something where even though it, was verbal, then went into physical and all of that stuff, it was something where I had the sense that it wasn't going to escalate any further, even though he literally like drew blood, right?
Yep.
And Toru was okay. She was like
she was in shock.
She was in shock, right? This was a lot to take in, but she was standing her ground. She was looking him dead in the eye, right? He was not breaking her spirit at all, right? And that's one of the things that's always been really uncomfortable for me whenever we see Akito dealing with the other characters,
especially what happened with Kisa.
With Kisa, it's on top of that because she physically is not capable of resisting
even what Momiji did.
Right, exactly. So it's her life was in danger at that point. But even with something like with Kyo last episode, or like the stuff that we've gotten with Yuki and Akito, if it's something where I can see that his words are actually like starting to take root in them and take them apart, then that's something where it suddenly becomes a hell of a lot more uncomfortable for me because I'm like, no, you shouldn't be in this situation. Get out. In this situation, yes, Toru ideally would not need to be in this situation.
Right.
Neither would Momiji or anything like that, right? It's all kinds of fucked up.
This is Akito's attack.
Right, this is Akito's attack.
Sneak attack in the middle of the night.
Right.
No prep for this.
But they're effectively still being able to do their wax on, wax off like defenses. He's not able to really land any solid hits on them.
And it's probably because he doesn't have any dominion or control over her in the literal sense.
Yep.
He actually can't do anything to her other than what he did right here.
Right.
And that's probably the part that's most uncomfortable, is that for everyone else, they know what he can do to them, and thus by extension then hurt Toru even more.
Right.
Because, well,
and and if they do anything to antagonize, Daddy while he's drunk, right?
Yeah.
Then he will lash out more, right?
And it will hurt Toru the most, because you all have had time to build up resistance to this and basically understand ways in which to survive.
Yeah, figure out ways to navigate this whole environment.
And some of you have even ran away. Some of you have even, distanced yourself entirely. Some of you were even his own personal pet at times. So you guys have a lot more innate resistance to this. Toru is way more fragile. And the fact that Toru actually showed her strength here is because she first felt the need to protect Momiji. And this is what's really cool about Toru as the main character, is that her arc is not going to be about how she gets better at self-sacrificing.
Right.
Except for the fact that that's one of her strengths currently.
So everything kind of looks like a nail sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So she can be like, I will help. I will protect them. I will do all this stuff. And it's like, yes, Toru, that is one of your strengths. You go do that. Just know there's going to be a point where you won't be able to do that. And then you'll have to admit that you're going to need to ask for help. You're going to need to be vulnerable yourself. In some ways, Akito's unwillingness to show vulnerability here is a dark mirror of you in a lot of ways. So, so there's a lot of cool opportunities for you to see the stark contrast of Akito and yourself, and then a lot of the Soma family, but then realize that in a lot of ways, Akito is too extreme. Akito is almost too far into another side of things, to where you know that can't be some immutable thing. Like, if Akito is a god of some level, Akito has incredible potential power in general. But also, in the literal sense then, there's a lot of potential power in terms of Akito being able to change himself. And if that's the case, Toru, and you stood up to this god, and you got it to leave, you did scratch your face with claws, basically, to let you know that
it leaves a mark.
It leaves a mark, right?
But you did.
No one else had to get hurt.
Right, you did great. No one else had to get hurt. And afterwards, when you saw this thing that, suddenly it rears its ugly head, and you know exactly what you and the rest of the Soma family are dealing with, then you end up going and having that whole fireworks thing with the rest of them.
Right.
Because that, even though it wasn't like directly talked about, it's something where she is essentially sharing that burden with the rest of them non-verbally by still being in that moment of happiness.
I still think that's not really a true example of that.
Yes, the fact that they said, we just fell, right? And then her and Momiji have that sweet thing of pressing the foreheads
together. Because Hiro and Kisa are there. I think that if they weren't there, I think they would have talked about it a little bit more freely. And I think it would have been a thing where they would have had to have that uncomfortable talk of, so, Toru, we saw, we know what happened. And I liked that in a lot of ways, they're building up to this whole thing even more by having them not share with Toru that they knew. Momiji might know that they were there, but for all Toru knows, just Hattori, Shigure, and Momiji know about this. Of course, Akito.
Right.
But,
one of the things that I really, really loved as sort of it felt kind of like another shoe dropping, right? Is Yuki and Kyo's interaction at the end of the episode.
Oh, that was so good.
So the idea of their rivalry and them constantly being at odds with each other and and being like, we both like Toru and everything, right? It's great fun, but that it's the kind of thing where, and I think I might have even said this in previous discussions, that the thing that makes me most excited about that is to see when it gets dropped, when the situation gets serious, right?
Yeah.
When there's a real external threat, right? Like with Akito.
Yeah.
And the idea that Yuki is able to see in this Bakaneko that he also hated himself for not doing something.
It's like, he thinks of himself as pathetic too. He's like, are you being sarcastic? No, I'm being serious.
Yeah. But he had the presence of mind to realize that in this situation, him intervening would just make things worse. Right. So Yuki kind of has that he's giving him that acknowledgement of, okay, I can basically trust you with this situation.
Right.
We don't need to be combative in here because we both understand what's going on, right? And then him being like, hey, I know you're feeling this because you're not used to this, right? So I'm going to address you and specifically push through that and be like, hey, get over here, right? And I'm going to tell you in the way that will actually get
make you to do it.
That will get you to do it because, that's how we work, right?
That's how we do things.
So
oh my God, that was so sweet.
I absolutely loved that.
I love that Momiji and Toru are just like, what? I don't get it. And then, of course,
he was just like,
I love that shall I relinquish my seat to you then, stupid cat? Bakaneko. Relinquish my seat.
Right.
Now, there's Zodiacs, right? Mm-hmm. So in some ways, it's kind of like he's saying, you realize that I care so much about Toru that I will even give up my position, not in the Zodiac just necessarily, but like I will give up everything, even my own connection to Toru potentially, so that you can come here and do an even better job than me at protecting her.
And one of the things that this makes me wonder, as like a potential long shot, like going out on a limb for the future of the series, is what if in the situation with the ultimatum that Akito gave Kyo of like beat Yuki before you graduate high school, or you'll be locked up forever.
Yeah.
What if it gets to the point where Yuki basically lets him win or something like that?
You just willingly just said, yeah, he beat me.
Right. Yeah. And maybe it's something that like pisses off Akito enough that he's like, okay, yeah, Kyo, you're a part of the Zodiac. Yuki, you're now kicked out. You've got the curse.
Right.
You're locked up in jail. And Yuki is like, that's fine. I'll take that because I've dealt with that kind of stuff before, right? Oh, you're telling me I'll be locked in a room where you won't be there?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's a direction that Yuki's character arc seems to be headed in general is that he is becoming a bit like Toru in some ways.
Okay.
Toru's main thing, I would say, is that she cares so much about others because they provide opportunities for her to feel like she's a part of a family.
Yeah.
And she's desperately scared of the idea of that family being ripped away from her.
Right.
So she'll do anything to make them feel welcome, wanted, loved, and all that stuff. It's not as genuine as it could be. There's a lot of it that's really kind of put upon because it's the right thing to do. Now,
gotcha.
Yuki is basically the prince. He's proper. He's got all that. But
suave and all that.
Right, but that's a bit fake as well. But as we've seen him now, he started to move more into being, I would say, kind of, as he would say, selfish, but basically making sure that his needs are getting met and what have you.
Yeah.
And he's realizing in some ways that he's learning so much from Toru. Like Toru is just this source of strength for him, just this source of like of hope, of like of goodness. Like she's just the light of his life, and yet he is very much like he's kind of like holding her like at that like just enough distance where it almost feels like he's not sure of whether or not he wants to commit to any kind of like romantic stuff or what have you.
his own desire to basically hold to the prince sort of persona that he put on at school, but then trying to embody it and making it more of like genuinely him,
right? Which I think is turned almost a bit more into something that's like, it's kind of like what Toru does, where she's just like, I am everyone's best friend. I will be your princess, if you will. I will like do all these wonderful things for you. And yet Yuki's is almost specifically focused. Like it's specifically focused now on Toru.
Yep.
And that's a form of almost like toxic selfless, where it's almost like putting them up too much on a pedestal.
Sure, but I feel like because in the case with Toru, it's something where the stuff that she does, it's not the problem that she does it. The problem is that she does it all the time.
Yes,
right.
She doesn't have boundaries.
She doesn't have boundaries, right?
Yep.
In Yuki's case, because he's currently growing, him going into a state that's kind of like that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, because it could be the thing that he's basically experimenting with. Yeah, it's part of the transition. He doesn't fully understand it. He doesn't fully understand it. He comes to understand it, and then he basically moves on to the better thing, right?
Right. I just feel like with his kind of direction that he's going.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's something where he's basically like he's just basically like, how can I make your existence, Toru, just better? And in this case here, he basically did I will move my romantic interests to the side here and make room for you, Kyo, like in a way that wouldn't serve him. Like it's a thing that in the simplest way, if Yuki really loves Toru, like he really does, the question is whether or not it's something where he's moving away from the romantic side of things, because that was more tied to his princely, flirty persona.
Sure. Yeah.
And he's moving more into the, like, I am a protector, in the same way that's why I was saying I think he's becoming more like Toru, is that her thing is I want to protect all of them, and I think Yuki is like, well, then I'm going to protect Toru. Like, that's where I'm shifting towards there. And that means it's less of a like flirty thing and more of like a tenderness, just a genuine tenderness.
And the reason why I think that it's not as like problematically selfless is because I feel like the princely stuff was an example of Yuki figuring out how to be confident enough in his own wants, right? Because he lived a life where he had been so traumatized, so beat down, his confidence so taken out from under him, right? That getting to the point where it's like, okay, I know who I am, this is what I want, so I'm going to go after it, and hey, I can do this princely thing, so that's a way that I can sort of flirt with Toru, right? Yeah. Because I am still a little scared of like the truly like vulnerable emotions and all that stuff, right?
Because we've seen him have vulnerable moments with Toru, and they did not end in like super romantic things.
And in fact, he ended up apologizing for them after, which exactly. That shows that he's still learning, right?
It shows that he's still not sure about his own real feelings, actually. Yeah.
But now in this situation, maybe because he's gotten a bit more comfortable with going after the things that he wants, that means he is also... He feels safer to basically put what he wants aside and then basically be like, I'm going to help this person out, right? It's the stage of development where originally, way back at the beginning, Yuki couldn't even take care of himself. Now he's gotten to the point where he's able to take care of himself pretty good. And so he's thinking, I'm gonna venture out and I'm gonna start helping to take care of other people too, right? And that's maybe
the reason why I think he's doing that though is because of Toru.
Gotcha.
It's something that I feel like is
like in the moment because of Toru, or like the growth came about because of Toru?
I think the growth came about because of Toru, and it's something where because of that, this new side of him is focused on Toru.
Gotcha.
Like, I didn't see any of this going towards Momiji. And I want to say it's not necessarily like an unhealthy thing, but it's just the idea that the time when he basically entreats Kyo to come sit over here. Come on, dude. Like, you clearly want to be over here. And also, you can help me in the protecting side of things here.
Right.
Like the way they literally form a triangle around her.
Yep.
I think that's partially more of a thing of where he's saying, I will be willing to give up my seat. Like, that's a very, very particular phrase to say, hey, come sit over here, you stupid cat, you know?
Right.
And no, it's take my seat. I am willing to sacrifice something valuable, something that's not just valuable to me, but I believe has a value to her, or a connection point enough with her that it removes some of my connection with Toru.
Right. Okay, yeah.
And yet he's like, no, I'll sit wherever I want without you offering your seat to me. Basically saying, you keep doing you, Yuki. I'll do what I want, and what I want is to be with Toru. Right. And so our Bakaneko is getting even more adorable because he's like, I'm not even capable of hiding it anymore. Like, even Momiji is probably like, well, this could lead to some really cool developments. And then, of course, she's thinking, I want to protect them. I want to protect the path
which
they've
is
all
just
chosen with all
so
my strength.
Sweet. I love the fact that Toru, who is like the embodiment of the protect energy, is the one that's like, no, I'm going to protect them. Like, I love it. I love it so much.
I love it so much. Okay, so this episode basically had attack on Akito, you know, like the Shingeki no Akito, you know. So basically, What do you think about this scene in the beginning here with Momiji and Toru? Not Momiji and Toru.
Momiji and Kyo.
Momiji and Kyo, yeah.
I think that was the setup for the acceptance of the situation that makes it so that when we see later that Kyo had been watching the entire time and he didn't do anything, that makes sense.
That was why they were doing it. It's a reminder of sorts.
Yeah, it's a reminder because the idea, like when Yuki originally told Kyo, hey, don't flip out at Akito, that'll just make him more pissed, and then he'll take it out on Toru. Kyo did not respond positively in the immediate to that, right? The idea of doing that reviled him, right?
Yes.
But as it went on, he ended up kind of realizing, okay, maybe that's a good idea. And then here we see that, like, made concrete in that he's actively thanking Momiji, right, for doing their part, even though they probably wanted to hang out with Toru a bunch too.
Yeah. But then Momiji says, but we're not. I've been doing it all wrong. And I think this was the foreshadowing that Momiji was going to stand in the, path of Akito, which is wonderful. But I actually wonder if there's something else here. It's like, even though I left her, I still want to make memories with Toru. I'm so selfish. I just like her so much, I can't help it. Now, there's this aspect of, well, on a meta level, all the Soma family loves Toru.
Yep.
It's the new character that comes in that everyone swiftly adopts for their own different reasons. It's not all romantic necessarily. It's not some kind of harem thing or what have you. No. We've got ourselves a situation where everyone wants to protect Toru, but the thing is that, like, the way in which, like, Momiji is just, I can't help it. Like, I love her so much. I like her so much.
Right.
I feel like on some level they're setting up something where Toru is so like Akito that in some ways they can't help but draw the diametric, like the difference, basically.
Sure.
They're already showing how the characters are like, when Akito was in power or what have you, and everything was, Toru was not there, it's just, things were worse maybe, that they would just be like, well, I can't help it. I have to do what he says, I just do this. But now Toru's here and it's like, I can't help it. I want to be with her.
Yeah.
It's
right. It's the perfect nega, like, inverse.
Oh, right. But think about it from the
magnitude of effect that it's having on them, regardless of what kind of effect.
Right. The idea that we're dealing with a supernatural story, right? But the idea that if we're going to have a happy ending, because the story is absolutely going to have a happy ending, is what kind of metaphysical aspects or attributes can you give to some of the most fundamental things of humanity, like love, happiness, all these things that are non-physical. They're things that aren't really tangible. You can't quantify them.
Sure.
Akito seems like the kind of antagonist that you defeat with the power of love, not the power of,
right. It's not going to be
kind of trickery thing.
Yeah, it's not going to be some technical workaround of the power system or anything like that. Yeah.
So this thing here where Momiji, maybe in the metaphysical sense, literally broke the connection of control between him and Akito by the by the act of, like, I like Toru so much, I am able to then prioritize Toru over not just myself, but also Akito. And that's kind of what then Toru is saying at the end of the episode of, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put them all above myself. I'm going to protect them all. And this is how family structure basically works, is that they all have that little bit of selflessness towards each other, so that while they all need to support each other, they're also all supporting each other. So, it just kind of works out. Yeah. And I just feel like that's not just foreshadowing for this episode. That's like foreshadowing for, like, the series. Like, that's it. Well, and given that we have characters that, it's given that we have characters that actually love, and characters that might theoretically have a more unique kind of like with Shigure, because we don't know necessarily who Akito was referring to.
Yeah.
Because that woman could have been something from the past,
Right,
and then he transitioned to thinking about Toru.
That was one of those things that threw me for a bit of a loop. Because I am very much on the bandwagon of Shigure is avenging some person that basically was taken from him. You know, that's the only way I can think that he would have this much bite that also would make him be okay with using the other people as bait. You know, and it did feel like we got some hint of some childhood friend or something like that, you know, that he was really close to, that is not around anymore, you know, and that would do it.
That would
do it.
But the idea also of them calling it selfish, this is something that culturally, I understand a little bit more, that this is a turn of phrase in the way they're saying it that is something that we wouldn't say in the U.S. generally. Calling it selfish is very basically like either a tricky translation or something where they're like, I'm being selfish, because sometimes in the U.S. there's the idea that selfish is actually like
there's a negative connotation to it.
It's primarily negative,
as opposed to just descriptive of taking care of yourself.
Yeah, I am being self-oriented, basically.
Right.
A form of it that we've been coining the phrase more nowadays is self-care. The idea that if you're going to just push things away in general, that's not necessarily a good thing. But if you push things away in order to focus and prioritize yourself, that is selfishness, but it is not necessarily a negative thing.
Right. So that's the big lesson that Toru needs to learn.
That's exactly the lesson that Toru needs to learn, right. So the idea that these two boys here are having this conversation and Toru's overhearing it, I feel like that's planting the seed a little bit of where Toru is going to have a moment where she stands proud and she's just like, yeah, I'm being selfish. What of it?
Oh yeah. I cannot wait for the most like power of friendship, power of love JRPG ending where they're like fighting God, but just with like, you know, words and hand holding, you know, and like that will be absolutely glorious. Like, yes. I'm also really glad that I mean, I guess we just didn't. We didn't remember what it was brought up as in the very first episode, but the fact that Akito is basically just, you know, the god of the Zodiacs, right?
Capital G.
Right, you know, the I hold dominion over them and their souls, basically. It's like, okay, there's the explanation of just how absolute his control seems to be.
Right.
You know, right.
Because that's the thing. Toru immediately divined the possibility that then Akito is subject to this curse as well.
Right.
And I'm like, yes, yes, because Akito is pathetic.
Oh, yeah.
That's the point.
The very fact that Akito can't be vulnerable with Toru or with anyone, really, showcases how pathetic he is and that he mentally acknowledges the fact that he's pathetic. Right. Because if you were to get someone who was truly untouchable, right, they would have no problem being vulnerable because who cares, right? You know, you will not have an effect on me regardless. So, you know, I can share my deepest, darkest secrets and things like that. And that's, you know, you got nothing, right? So the fact that Akito went so all out on his attack, and yet we realize that as he's playing every card in his hand, he really doesn't have anything. Like, so.
Yeah. But wow. Okay.
Wonderful episode.
Wonderful episode. Like, I feel like that's how you basically put an end cap on an arc.
Yep.
Like, this is...
And that's the mid-season finale.
Yeah, this
like,
is...
So, you know...
We've got a core plus change still to go.
So we can do a lot with this development that we've had here, right? Like,
and Isuzu, Rin, is still... little bit left up in the air right now.
Right, and it almost seemed to me like the reason why she didn't want anyone to know that she was here was specifically so that Akito would find out she was missing and then go back home early.
And protect them.
Right, which is very interesting.
That was so cool.
Like, you know.
That was so cool.
Yeah.
But of course, she doesn't just want to, you know, pull this. She wants to go over here and maybe, like, check up on them and see, like...
Well...
Are things going well?
Maybe she selfishly also wants to be a part of it.
Maybe she selfishly wants to be a part of it.
You know?
Exactly.
Like,
yep.
I'm really glad that we got this here because because the third season is one court, right? And it's something where the pacing of Fruits Basket so far has been very, very relaxed in a way that I really like, because since there's so many characters, since the themes and the subjects that they touch on are so sensitive, right? They've got to be very delicate with it, which means taking your time, right?
Yep.
And I kind of had this like assumption in my head that because like they're broken up into particular seasons, and I'm sure the season 2 finale is going to be insane and awesome and wonderful,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
But that like that would kind of be where like Akito would be officially made like the conflict that they have to deal with right now. And then I was like, oh well, what would season 3 be like? Will they be able to have that same kind of like slow burn focus on this being addressed if you only have one core to do it with all of these different characters and also tie up their arcs and resolve everything? So the fact that we got this here, that was like, okay, we're gonna have a full ass season, to just let this play out.
I love it. Yeah. But all right, y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below. Hold on, I almost dropped the bottle there. You can check out early access there. You can watch our full length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if ain't that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.